Let us look at proposition number 6 of book 8 of Euclid's Elements. The proposition says, if there are as many numbers as we please in continued proportion, and the first does not measure the second, then neither does any other number measure any other. Now, in this proposition, one clarification that is required is if A doesn't measure B, then B will not measure D, A will not measure C, A will not measure D, E, C will not measure D, E. So the clarification is that a number will not measure any other number which is appearing later in the sequence. That is one clarification. Let's prove that. So given A, B, C, D, E in continued proportion, we are given that A does not measure B. One thing is clear, that if A does not measure B, then A, B, C, D, E do not measure each other in order. That means what? If A doesn't measure B, then B will not measure C, C will not measure D, D will not measure E. So this is pretty straightforward, mainly because of the ratios in the continued. Now, what we have to show is that B also doesn't measure D. If A doesn't measure B, then A will not measure C, D, E. So we can choose any numbers. So let's take any two numbers from A to E. Let us take A and C, the two numbers that we are interested in. If possible, let A measure C. So this is our assumption. We take as many numbers F, G, H as there are between from A to C. So we have three numbers. So we take F, G, H such that A is to B is to C is equal to F is to G is to H, where F, G, H are the least of such numbers with the same ratio as A, B, C. Okay? So which means what? X equally, we can say A is to C is equal to F is to H. A is to B is equal to F is to G, and A does not measure B. We are given that. So which means F also does not measure G because of this proportion, and which means F is not a unit. Why? Because unit will measure any number. Since F does not measure G, F is not a unit. That means F and H are relatively prime. Since A is to C is equal to F is to H, and F and H are relatively prime, that means A and C are relatively prime. And since A and C are relatively prime, that means A does not measure C. So basically, we have shown in one case like that, we can choose any two numbers. We can choose B and D, or B and E, or A and D, or A and E, and show that A will not measure any number which appears later, or B will not measure any number which is appearing later, provided A does not measure B. So that is proposition number 6 of book 8 of Euclid's Elements. Again, let me remind you, there is a link to a PDF book which describes all these propositions with proper references to the previous propositions. Please feel free to download it, refer to it, and if you think somebody else can also benefit from it, please do share. That's it for now.